Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for coming to our final lowdown of this year. And thanks to all of you who have been coming or been watching the video later. I know many of you download it later and watch it. We are, for those of you, I think all of you have, I should see a show of hands. Have all of you been to a lowdown before who are here? Most of you, yes. Okay. For those of you who haven't been here before, my name is Camus Davis. I'm the executive director of the Good Meat Project. We are a national nonprofit based here in Portland, Oregon, with the mission to catalyze marketplace innovation, connection, and education all across the meat supply chain in order to increase economic viability and the positive ecological impact of livestock farmers who invest in healthy land animals.
There we go. Hi, sorry.
Everyone can mute if they want to for now. That'd be great. Thanks for coming, Lori. We started the lowdown in order to create a space for livestock producers around the country who specifically sell direct to consumers or direct to retail outlets or institutions to come together and share their experiences, share details about what they struggle with, share strategies. And so we're really excited today to be focusing on selling to butcher shops. I will, at the end, first of all, we'll have our hosts, Alex and Megan, introduce themselves, and then I'll turn it over to them and they'll start talking to Polly and Kevin and Cian, our guest today. We'll do that, I think, until about 15 till, and then we'll do a Q&A. But you guys can feel free to put your questions in the chat. I'll be feeding questions to Alex and Megan as we go. And trying to think if there's any, I also wanted to just thank our sponsor, Grown By. I'll be putting some information in the chat about a discount that they're offering to people who take part in the lowdown. Grown By is run by Farm Generations Co-op, and it is a great e-commerce platform that they've created for farmers and ranchers like many of you. So with that, I will turn it over to Alex and Megan, who are going to introduce themselves, and we'll get started.
Hi, everybody. I'm pulling a lot of technological strings here. I'm at our local feed store right now. So I'm talking on my phone, but looking at the camera on Zoom. So bear with me. Megan Lannon from Barney Creek Livestock in the Paradise Valley in Montana. I own and operate with my husband a grass-fed, grass-finished grazing business. We graze over 800 acres in the Paradise Valley, and just glad to be here and can't wait to visit.
Thanks, Megan. I'm Alex Miller. I'm part of the operation called Lick Skillet Farm. We're in East Tennessee at the base of the Smoky Mountains. We do grass-finished beef and lamb, and we do pastured heritage pork and chickens, eggs. We're pastured proteins, is sort of especially selling direct to consumers. Have no experience in working with butchers, so really looking forward to this session. I think that's a big opportunity for a lot of folks, and I think this is going to be fantastic. And we've got an opportunity with Cian and with to look at a different kind of business model, a way of involving collective and sort of aggregating some suppliers. That's going to be really interesting. And then, of course, Polly and Kevin will get it directly from them on what it's like to be on the receiving end of good meat from local farmers. All right, with having said all that, let's jump right into it. I think we need to start with just basically understanding your business models. If you could introduce sort of what it is you do and how you do it. And Kevin and Polly, let's start with you, and then Cian we'll move to you. Kevin, Polly?
Yeah, okay, so we own a butcher shop here in Ballard. Seattle, whole animal butcher shop. We have a small restaurant in here on Fridays and Saturdays, and then we have a kind of like a brasserie stroke wine bar Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. But predominantly our business is selling meat from meat cases and making lots of lovely charcuterie items, we work 95% upwards. I'd say our stuff is from Washington. We get occasional lamb from Oregon and some Japanese A5 from Japan. And the other thing we can't source is foie gras. So I'd say 95% of our stuff comes from Washington. And of that stuff, I'd say CN and Preservation Meat supply us with probably 75% of that stuff. So that's a very basic way of looking at how I look at beef and Cleaver. My wife Polly can probably tell you some other stuff too.
Yeah, just tiny little bit. My background is in marketing, and I worked in agencies and ran my own marketing company for the last 8 years, marketing for like 20 years. So I work on the business side, admin, marketing, etc. So I can talk a little bit about that. Kevin's obviously in the shop as a chef and a butcher. And so, yeah, we come at it from a little bit of different perspectives and trying to do this sort of unique thing that we're doing in this tiny, small space you see behind us.
Yeah, 1,154 square feet. So really long in. Yeah, we probably move through about 2 whole beef carcasses a week, 3 pigs, 1 to 2 lamb, and then we also don't have the room for. We probably move through about 5 to 6 beef carcasses per week, but we only bring in 1 to 2 whole beef carcasses, and the rest is broken down into subprimals for us, mainly because we don't have the space. Yeah.
All right. And are you doing any poultry products? You did mention you do poultry.
Yeah. Chicken and geese. We did
Ducks
have
when we can get them.
duck. I'm sure Sian can tell you all about
Rabbit.
the problems we had with geese, with duck and rabbit this year. But yeah, we do have poultry.
And Sian, you have a different kind of business model, one I'm not familiar with. Can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, so CN Preservation Meat Collective will actually have our 5-year anniversary March 8th. I've been in the meat industry since 2006. Not a chef by any means, but came from the cooking world. Been doing on-farm butchery since I was about 4 years old. Grew up super poor in a little town in Bellingham, Washington. Was about 90 miles north of Seattle, and just kind of grew up processing animals to survive. And that's kind of how I got my start and the love for meat processing. And basically what we do is we kind of work with people like Kevin. You have to have the consumer in order to kind of create this business model. So for the last close to 5 years, we basically built a huge network of chefs that basically want to buy local, sustainable products that they can actually kind of truly be confident that where it came from. So basically our goal is to find micro growers spread out Washington and basically buy the whole carcass, piece them out, and sell them to as many people as we possibly can. So for example, one of our beef carcasses could go to 20 different restaurants, and that could be 2 tenderloins, 2 New Yorks, 20 pounds of ground beef going here, 20 pounds of ground beef going here, 100 pounds of ground beef going to this other guy. So we basically created a CSA in a sense for the restaurant industry, is I guess how I like to describe it sometimes.
Cool. And are Kevin and Polly your only butchers that you supply, or you supply other butchers as well?
We supply 3 other butcher shops.
Okay. Megan, you still with us?
But
Yep,
where's
I am. So just from a producer perspective, selling into a whole animal butcher shop is an appealing idea, but not always easy to make work. So Cian, can you talk a little bit about how you've selected the producers that you work with? Like, what does that criteria look like for you?
Pretty dynamic question. Producers, it has to work for the producer first. Where are they located? Can they get the products to one of our USDA processing facilities? How can we facilitate that product from the facility to Seattle, Washington for us to store and then for us to get it to, you know, somebody like Kevin and Polly. So it's a kind of a dynamic question because there's producers all over. We'd love to work with more, but the USDA processing arm isn't always easy. So it kind of has to be a multifaceted kind of scenario and stepping process.
So Kevin and Polly, you purchase from CN, and
Mhm.
you said 75% of your Washington product are probably coming from him.
Yeah.
Talk about the differences in sourcing from CN versus buying directly from a producer, and what are the pros and cons of each, and what's the nature of that?
Yeah,
those
so
differences.
it's very difficult to buy directly from the farmers themselves, mainly because there is a limited amount of USDA processing facilities here. So I believe there's something like 1,850 beef farms in Washington, but not many of those places have access to get to the USDA slaughtered facilities. So for us to legally be able to sell meat, it has to come through a USDA facility. So that really limits those 850 beef farms out there. So a lot of the stuff is going WSDA, which is going to farmers markets and whatever else they choose to do with it. So we have to work through the three main USDA slaughter facilities here, and that is how we get to choose the animals we work with. In an ideal world, it would be fantastic to say, you know, there's a small farm with 20 head of amazing grass-fed beef and we want it. And we get those questions all the time. We have farmers approaching us all the time, but we legally can't take it unless they travel 200 miles to Moses Lake to get that animal slaughtered. And then, so the logistics of that decide where we get our beef and other animals from.
I would say other pros and cons that we've experienced over the last few years are just the mechanics. I mean, it's always the boring stuff, but it's the mechanics of what Kevin said, but then also delivery,
Mhm.
right? And when farmers are dealing with all of the dynamic situations they're dealing with, we have to know that we're gonna get that animal on a Monday at this time, so we can break it down, so it can be ready for the case on Tuesday. Monday's our production day. Not that we're not doing production all week, but
Mhm.
and so over time, there are lots of farmers that we worked with that we either then introduced to CN and his team because it's so much easier for them to get into his system,
Mhm.
or that we worked with and didn't work out, or worked with and have found a way to work out. But it's usually the boring logistics of delivery, timing,
Yep.
you know, consistency. If
Consis-
something comes up, we need to know that we're gonna have product, otherwise then we're short and our customers can't buy.
Yeah.
So it's those kind of details that are also complicated.
Yeah, and I mean, like Holly mentioned the word consistency. You know, with some small farms that we've had in the past, we've had like some of the best beef we've ever seen. And then 3 weeks later, it's like not very good at all, you know, and we do need consistency, and mainly because we have a really big customer base now and they want consistency. They want to know that what they're getting is where it's coming from, the fact that it's not coming from the supermarket, it's not going through the commodity grading system. And so, you know, the whole thing that we've been talking about really does direct where our beef comes from. And I'm sure Tian could give you some really cool information on that too. Yeah.
So you're sourcing the bulk of your stuff through CN, and CN is serving 3 different butchers. It sounds like, at least in your part of the country, it's very common for butchers to work through an aggregator like CN. Is that the dominant model for butchers?
I wouldn't say it's the dominant model. It's definitely our model. I can't speak for what other butcher shops and restaurants do, for sure, but our model is absolutely working through CN, and then we work through another company, Heritage Meats, who supply us with about 25% of some stuff that we get into, maybe less than that. But they're both USDA facilities. So I can say I can't speak for what other restaurants and butcher shops do, but yeah.
So one more question, I'll turn it over to you to make it. So if I'm doing my math here, 75% is coming from CN and 25% is coming from Heritage. You're not buying anything to speak of directly from producers then?
No.
We have done.
You
And-
have in the past, but.
Yeah.
not currently.
And
We just didn't work
usually
out.
when they come to us now, we try and see if we can funnel them into one of those two or even help set it up for them.
Yeah.
Because they still can't deliver. So one farmer I would say we're working with directly, kind of. We've funneled him into Heritage because he can't deliver and he's south of the city. And so we've sort of worked with him to set up the system so that we speak directly with him, but we still get it through Heritage.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So my question is, when, and this is for all three of you, if you'd like to tackle it. So with this consistency, when you're working with someone that, seasonal, the flavor of the meat changes with the season. Okay. So how are you explaining that to the consumer that might be expecting, well, I buy a piece of meat from Walmart and it always tastes the same.
Yeah.
We don't need to go down that road and why that is. But how are you communicating that to the consumer for the producer?
This is a great point too, and I want them to speak to it, but I'll kind of add a compound to it. This is also true of seasonal animals, right? Like we're about to run out of chicken season and not have chickens for a while. We only have lamb at certain times a year. So I think both of these guys can speak to it better than I can, but from the marketing side, we've really built our brand around the education about whole animal isn't just a fun, cool thing to say that makes you seem a lot more organic and sustainable. Well, a whole animal butcher shop also means that we have to do the job of educating people that they don't get everything all the time. And everything doesn't taste the same way all the time. And we're so confident that this is the better, healthier, more sustainable way to live, that we don't shy away from it at all. We're very forward with that. Luckily, our brand is such that we just have a very honest, straightforward brand, which is to say, if you want to get chickens every day of the week and you want to go to Costco for your cheap chicken that's raised, however, that's on you, but we don't have them right now and this is why, and we won't have them right now and this is why. So we're just very, very forward with that kind of messaging, and over time, people respect us more because of it. It's very authentic and symbiotic with the way things are actually working in the field.
Yeah. And I think I would add to it, one of the things that all of the staff here at the shop do is, I personally tell everyone what the animal is, where it's coming from, what it's fed, what breed it is, how old it is. And then we, over the years of experience, we have a system of breaking the animals down into specific cuts, and we'll educate the guests in the nicest possible way that, this 7-year-old grass-fed Hereford beef is going to eat completely different than a 2-year-old grain-fed Black Angus. So that is something that we take a lot of joy in doing, is educating the customers when they come in, and we're all very confident with that. Everybody who works here is extremely knowledgeable and extremely confident, and we don't really have anything to hide behind. What we do is, what you get is what you see, and we're really proud of that. Yes.
We also, on the education side, use our weekly email and our social media, and we talk a lot about the animal. And in the shop, they do a very good job of being when you talk about how you cook different cuts, you also cook different animals. Like Kevin's example just then is a grass-fed animal, you might want to cook a ribeye this way, and a grain-fed animal, you might want to cook a ribeye this way. And we've just really carved out a niche of being really unafraid to talk about that and what it means and why we think it's better. And if you don't think it's better, you don't have to shop here. It's really as easy as that.
Cian, what you got to say, my man?
I think you guys hit a lot of stuff on the head there. Food is food. Animals are animals. Seasonality is huge. As of right now, locality wise, for poultry, for example, we don't even offer chicken, because pastured chicken for us is so expensive to our clients and our partners that we can't afford to bring it on and then sell it to our consumers, because we all know that pasture raised chickens are not $2 to $3 a pound. They're $6 a pound.
Yeah.
And so we kind of have to stick to a moral ground on our behalf and just say, we just can't afford to sell it to you because you can't afford to buy it from us.
Yeah.
So just being really true to what, I guess, your standards. That's,
And we, to that note, we had beautiful, beautiful rabbits and we carried them for a couple years and they're just not being produced right now. And so for us, it's just a very easy question because of our brand. Like, we just don't have rabbits right now.
Mhm.
We won't go out and supplement that with rabbits that we don't feel are worthy of fitting under the brand of our shop, that aren't like local and
Sustainable,
sustainable, yeah.
local. It's the same with the ducks, you know, the duck program came to an end a few months ago and we get questions every day about ducks, but I don't want to bring ducks in from upstate New York, you know, it doesn't make sense. We'd rather not have ducks than bring, not that there's anything wrong with ducks from upstate New York, but
It just
it
doesn't fit
make
what we're
sense
doing.
with what we're doing, you
Yeah.
know, so you know, preservation and Sian have done a great job finding some geese to fit in, and you know, it's
Stan, back to you. You started talking about sort of the business side of that. I want to follow up on that. So you earlier in your introduction, you referred to micro farmers. So I'm guessing that you're only working with fairly small producers. Is that correct?
yes.
All right. What would be the biggest producer you would have? How would you measure it in terms of volume?
One of our producers, we buy about 40 pigs a week from.
And that's not small
Yeah.
for this, not for this crowd. So that's significant.
Mhm.
And then does it fall off dramatically after that, or are there several that are sort of in that realm?
Yeah, some of them are producing 10 hogs a week. One of our cattle farmers that we buy a lot of beef from, we're harvesting anywhere from 10 to 15 animals a week from them. Some of them, again, we're buying one to two animals a week from. So it's kind of a wide casted net,
Gotcha.
various different producers.
Right.
Going to
Help me
different-
understand the USDA map where you are. It's not uncommon for folks to say, well, we don't have any USDA producers around us, but it sounds like your situation might be particularly dire. You're not a USDA processor, right?
We are not.
So are you just aggregating loads and that makes it viable to travel 200 miles to go to one, or is it, how is it that you're solving that problem?
So it's basically just, so we're not the processor, but we've become friends with the processors. So we also worked with the same processor that Beast and Cleaver uses, Heritage Meats. They're a centralized mobile abattoir in kind of central Washington, south central Washington. We have a processing plant that we work really closely with in Moses Lake, which is like central Washington. And so we're constantly finding the farmers within those regions. And if we can find those farmers within those regions now, instead of, somebody driving one animal 200 miles away, we can actually aggregate and find and even facilitate our truck to pick up 3 animals. So that way the diesel costs, just in that load can get dispersed between 3 animals instead of 1. And so it's kind of this little ecosystem that we've in a sense created based on the localities of our processing plants.
Yeah, okay. I see, that makes sense. And one final question for you, from me anyway. I assume that some of your producers are also selling to other folks, perhaps even selling direct to consumers. Is that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So from maybe this is an unfair question, but from their perspective, what are the pros and cons you think your business model offers them versus going direct to consumers with their sales? How do you compete with that? Because I'm assuming the margins are going to be thinner selling through you that then sells through a butcher shop, then that sells to a consumer. So that's two additional steps. That's bound to put quite a bit of pressure on the margin that your producers are looking at it and using that particular sales channel.
I think what it is that this goes back to one of the original questions, is how do we choose the producers? We're all a part of this system, right? You guys are raising animals, you're selling direct. We're selling to a market that is in a sense really challenging to get to. Not every restaurant wants to or can bring in a lamb tomorrow or next Tuesday from so-and-so farm. And so a lot of folks look to us to be those folks to actually bring them, just like what Kevin and Polly was saying earlier. And so we're basically in a completely different market than any farmer that's selling directly to, direct to consumer. So we're a very different market. And I think where we provide value is keep doing what you're doing, but there's also other channels to get rid of products or to sell products. And I think it's just a part of the system where, for example, one of our farmers right now he's going through a very slow period, and we're committed, to buying about 10 animals from him next month. Well, if we didn't buy those 10 animals from him next month, he wouldn't be able to pay his bills. And so I think even though by taking a little bit less, so that way we can have our margin and the chef and the restaurant can put it on their plate and sell it to their consumer, it's just a part of the system where I think it all works if we're all willing to figure it out. Now, some of it is very challenging. Some of the margins are very challenging for all of us. But at the end of the day, I think we're still all feeding into the system. And I think that's the important part of it.
Cool.
Can you give me an idea of what that might look like in terms of what an example of those margins might be? If I have one whole beef and per pound, direct to consumer is $10 a pound for me, direct to consumer for a whole animal. You're buying that whole animal. What do you pay right now, just as an example, per pound? And then what are Polly and Kevin getting that from? And then what's the price point look on your meat when you sell it in the butcher shop? What's that look like, that flow?
Well, it really is challenging because every farmer is different. The type of cattle that we're buying can be very different. Whether it was a grass fed, whether it was a barley fed.
So we'll say grass fed, just for this example, grass fed, grass finished, 28 months. Steer.
You're probably looking at anywhere from $390 to $499 for a whole carcass.
Okay, and then so then it gets to Polly and Kevin, and then what does that transaction look like?
That's I was quoting roughly the prices that it would be getting to Kevin and Polly.
Oh, but what do you pay the producer? That $399, and then you just pass that through, or?
Yeah, it's on average anywhere from $350 to $450. Everyone thinks that the evil distribution company makes a lot of money. I mean, on average, we're looking at 2 to 15% margin out the door, all said and done. And the challenging part is we're trying to create an ecosystem that has never really been done before. So we're constantly learning every day on what is working and what isn't. And sometimes we're in the red with our margins, but it's just a part of trial and error. And I'm sure you guys probably deal with that all the time yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kevin and Polly, we haven't heard from you. You've got comments on what we've just covered?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge thing to talk about there. But yeah, the way we sell our beef and pork and lamb is the more whole animal stuff we buy, the more profitable it is for us, because we can turn it into more things. We can take the bones and make demi-glace and stock from that. We can, if we're just buying 50 New York strips every week, it's very boring, and it's doesn't really give us the creativity that we need to create what is basically a butcher shop within a restaurant. So the more whole animals we buy, the more profitable it is for us, the more educational it is for the staff, the more educational it is for the customers and guests who come in. And it's just the way I choose to do things and we choose to do things. If you want to delve into numbers, feel free to ask me any question. I don't have anything to hide. So I'm not quite sure what the
On
exact
that
question was.
$4.50 a pound for a whole carcass.
Yeah.
You're paying that?
Well, well, it depends. Our carcasses go from anywhere from $3.25 a pound to $7 a pound. That's how much our carcasses range in difference, depending on what the animal is, you know. So if we're getting a Holstein animal from a grass-fed farm that's coming through heritage meat, it's around $3 to $3.25. If it's a 9-year-old grass-fed Wagyu from 15 miles away, it can be $7 to $9 a pound. You know, it depends. We don't have a set system of like, this is what we get. It's a little bit different all the time.
And then how do you price?
So we price by the method that I use to price is what is the lowest cost that we can take ground beef for and sell it at cost. So if a beef carcass weighs 1,000 pounds, we're automatically going to subtract about 30 to 35% of that for total loss that we're not going to be able to use. So let's say there's too much fat and there's too much bones and just stuff that is unusable is about 30 to 35%. So that would then mean, what if we took every single piece of meat that was usable, the 650 pounds, and ground that? And then our cheapest product is ground beef, right? So our cheapest meat product, beef product. So what would be the value of ground beef to break even? Then from there, we factor in things like rent. We factor things in like staff salaries, and it's a very complicated answer that I'm pretty complicated, but that's a basic way that I look at it.
I was tracking you until you kind of said, all right, we use the 650 pounds, assume that was all ground, what would we need to charge to make the desired margin? But then once you come up with that, how do you use what's the black box that says, and we go from that number to the price? I understand you have to include a bunch of other costs, but just in general, you're not going to, you take a high value item, how do you go from your lowest value item, the ground, to a ribeye price?
Yeah, so this is what I mean. It's not an easy, there is no set formula for that because we sell so many different products. So for instance, our sausages are a massive amount of production. Now, if we factor in the ground pork into sausages, that's one potential way of looking at making money on ground pork. But then if you take that same product and you turn it into pate en croûte, which sells at $46 a pound, but it's coming from an animal that is $3.25 a pound, and a pork chop is $12.99, there's no set formula for it. It's just experience over the last 3 years and growth into it. This is the most complicated shop model I've seen anywhere. The amount of stuff we're doing is pretty insane, and we don't aim for 20%. We don't aim for 30%. It's just rolling the way it is.
Sometimes too, some of our products kind of get a like what the market will bear price, because we have to sell other things that cost or at a loss to get rid of them to keep the whole animal program intact.
Yeah.
So it really becomes, over time, it's sort of a little bit about what the market will bear and also what it is required to run a whole animal butcher shop.
Yeah.
The other thing that we've seen, because we've traveled all over the country to see other butcher shops, the other thing that we've seen that makes the whole animal work the best is being able to get rid of stuff that doesn't sell in the restaurant side. And so for whole animal butcher shops that don't also have a restaurant side, they really struggle to get rid of some of that product and maintain the integrity of actually taking whole animals. Because Kevin can hold stuff creatively into his chef's tasting menu, stuff that people would never buy and think they would never want to eat. But the way he can package it up makes that dinner very skillful, but also possible.
So, I mean, something I can't speak enough about with our butcher shop is, you know, putting a full hood and a oven in here it changes everything, you know, because what do you do when you've got 2 whole beef carcasses? We've got 1.5 whole beef carcasses in there at the moment. What do you do when you've got too much ground beef and you're a butcher shop and you don't have an outlet for it? You know, you
You have a burger pop up.
you make meatloaf, maybe you make some burgers, and if you have the ability to cook that excess product, it opens up a whole new world where, you know, we do burger pop-ups once a month, and we'll move through 250 pounds of ground beef in a day. You know, that's a lot of beef to move through. And then if you factor in the restaurant we got here, you know, we're selling tons of lovely beef burgers in the evening. We're selling lots of sausages, you know, so it's, if you took away the,
We're hiding stuff in meat pies.
we hide stuff in meat pies, yeah. If you took away the cooking ability of a shop like this, then you go back down to a very standardized model where you could say, yes, this is what we pay for this is what we choose to make on this, and this is our ended outcome. But this model is not like any other model I've seen anywhere, so it's
It sounds very complex, and I'm also impressed that apparently your customers are dedicated enough or sophisticated enough to deal with what must be an ever-changing set of prices in the
Yeah.
in the
And
box.
you know, we don't fool ourselves when they want a chicken and we don't have a chicken. They're going to QFC or Safeway or wherever they're going, or Whole Foods or PCC. And that's okay. You know, like we won't compromise our standards just to retain their business, but we've been very focused on being local in the neighborhood. We've resisted expansion because it's so complicated and hard to manage what we do. It would be hard for us to replicate it.
so, I mean, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, taking all that complexity and boiling it down to something a poor producer like me can understand. What if I went to your meat case right now? What's a pound of ground beef selling for?
$8.99.
$8.99. Okay, that's a good benchmark that I think a lot of people around the country. And a prepared sausage, you should say a breakfast sausage, you have what would?
A breakfast sausage, $12 a pound, with 100% pork in it. We do a combined beef and pork sausage, which is $14 a pound. And lamb sausages or goat sausages go for $16 a pound.
Okay, that's good. And a technical question for the whole supply chain. Actually, two. Everything that you're moving through this particular supply chain is fresh, correct?
Yeah.
No frozen product.
I mean, the stuff
are you doing any frozen products, Ian?
Yes, so example, we just 2 weeks ago, I drove 11 and a half hours to go pick up 200 goose from a small farmer, about 500 miles round trip. And then we stuck them in the freezer, and they'll be selling for the next 1.5 months.
Yeah.
And one last technical question. Cian, can you source scalded hogs, or is everything still being skinned out there? Everything around us is skinned.
We do scalded hogs.
You got a processor that'll scald for you. That's great. Must be really valuable for you, Kevin.
Yeah, we want the skin
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
That, you know, really it's a huge one for us. It's helped separate our stuff that we've got from every supermarket, and there's lots of supermarkets, you know, and that's great for people who want to go and shop there. But if people want to come in and they want a skin on pork chop or a skin on shoulder to roast or whatever they're doing, it's huge for us to have.
Especially for your charcuterie business, I imagine that's.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, that's where the profit really can be turned up with pigs. Pigs are so profitable. You know, the skin, for example, will from a lot of the pigs will cook in a pot until it makes a massive pot of jelly, and that will get turned into all of the pâtés and the aspic and the jambon persilier and 100 other different products that we make with it. So, you know, we've currently been giving all of our bones from the 2 to 3 pigs a week we give them to a local ramen shop who make amazing stuff. Tiana's just started helping those guys out too. So we're really operating at a hardly any waste. You know, there's always going to be some waste, but we try and keep it to absolute minimal as we possibly can. Yeah.
So Alex, I'm
been dominated. Go, maybe.
well, no, I'm super excited that I think almost every call you've asked the scalded pig question. So I'm super excited that we.
Is that something that you're finding is a problem right now, scalded pigs?
Yeah, so we don't have a USDA producer within the area within 6 hours that has a scalder, period.
Wow.
So we just got the state of Tennessee to buy us one. So now we went in partnership with a local butcher who The state of Tennessee said, yep, we really need one, and we'll put a scalder in there. So we're about to be in the scalded hog business.
Amazing.
So I just got a question here. If a producer wanted to sell direct to a butcher shop and they're USDA, we've cleared that out of the way. Who does want to buy direct from them, and what would be the main perks for them if there was not a situation?
Yeah, so we are constantly getting emails about that from local farms. We are very happy to talk with them and deal with them and take their beef in. The hard part is, how do they get it to us? So say they're 250 miles away and they don't have a refrigerated truck. You know, I'm not going to drive out there and pick it up. So how are they going to do it? You know, this is where Cian comes in, and is it really beneficial for Cian to drive 250 miles and deliver us a product? So, you know, I mean, I think one of the really important things is COVID really did expose the holes in the food system. And, you know, the punched a big hole in it and showed that there's like the whole logistics of everything is completely messed up. So there's just not yes, we want to take this beef in, but how do you get it to us? And is it just going to be a one-off carcass? You know, great, you've got a lovely beef, you've got one of them, we can take that. Is that it? You know, this is what we mean about consistency. It's difficult, you know. We would love to take different beef from every week, but I'm currently 6 to 8 weeks out with a kill schedule for heritage meats and preservation meat, and I need to give them dates that are 6 to 8 weeks ahead. Okay, here's our calendar. I need a carcass coming to me on this day, and this day. Then if these other small farms want to get thrown into that calendar, which I would love, how do we do that? We can't just do it on oh, hang on, we got a carcass 2 weeks away. It needs to be thrown into our complex calendar.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that gives a little bit of information on that.
I see a question come through that's like very related to what we're talking about. I think that for us, again, the logistics, like we don't have a refrigerated truck. We're 2 people running a small business and managing our child, and luckily live like 2 miles away from the shop. So if there were a farmer who could, for instance, like deliver to us chickens, and again, like, it doesn't have to be all the time, but like the consistency we're talking about is like, if we agree on a schedule, you show up when you say you're going to show up, and you give us the number that you say you're going to give us. And like and that all works out and they can be delivered to us. I think the price, because the question was about a fair price in the chat, the price is negotiable.
Yeah.
Like we're a bit beholden to like what Cian and his team say is the price based on all of their mechanics. We would be willing to experiment. So in this particular example that she raises, like if you were able to bring us chickens and you told us and you showed up when you said you were and all of that, we would be willing to say like, sure, we'll try this and we'll price in this way. And we will talk to our customers about why they're special and who you're supporting and why it's important and what they taste like and that they're older and what they weigh and all of those things. We're willing to do all of that. And if they're willing to pay a price that works out for both of us, then that's great. We would totally do that.
Yeah.
And we've been many times willing to take on experiments like that haven't worked out for us because it's worth trying and we'll keep trying them. And if it was symbiotic and it worked well for us and people bought them and we were able to message that, then we would do that all day long because our goal is to support all of you. It just becomes hard when you layer in all of those other complexities that we've already talked about.
And the logistics, the logistics of delivery.
And honestly, too, a lot of things we've run into and we understand and we have compassion for it. It becomes hard for us on the administrative side is like, send us a check, or I want to be paid when the animal's killed, even though you haven't gotten it for 3 weeks. Or, there's just so many things. And it's like,
consider,
even just the details of paying are sometimes very challenging for us. And it's like, could you please send me a QuickBooks link? I would be happy to help you set that up. Could we set up an ACH? Could I send it to you electronically? Like lots of folks aren't comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But then it just becomes hard to manage because we have lots and lots of bills to pay. And if everyone's on a different system and different net 15, pay me the second you have it, hand me a check, send me a check. Like that becomes very complicated for us.
Mhm.
And there are people that we've said, it seems like a stupid, silly reason, but there's people we said like, it's just like too hard to pay you.
Yeah.
Like we need to go through our system because I spend hours trying to pay you when I'm supposed to be running a business and getting our website running and all of this other stuff, right?
So what is the easiest way to pay you? What
Like,
is the smoothest, easiest?
Literally, if you use QuickBooks or whatever you use, if you send me an electronic payment link where I could just like log on, give my bank details, send you money, those people are personally my favorite people. Or if you, I don't even mind, like with CN, we have an ACH, right? So they just deliver and take money out of our account and we check it. And, you know, like also that's a trusting relationship. We want to pay. It just sometimes people actually make it quite hard for us to pay.
Yeah, it's a little difficult, you know, and there's like, for me, somebody like me who.
Sorry, the sun, we're just like
Yeah, we're right at the
running
sun
away
at the
from the
minute.
sun.
No, you know, we have had very small farms in the past who just literally don't know how to like use email. I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah.
There's some farmers we've worked with, they talk to you over the phone. They say they're sending you some food down, the beef down, and it's like, okay, great. It's really, really challenging for a business because we can't just like, oh, here's a check, you know, when you show up and we don't know anything. It's really confusing. So that is a big one that Polly's talking about.
I mean, it seems so small and silly and logistical, but it is a real factor.
Yeah.
And if 10 people are making my life so hard to pay them, then I'm just gonna start cutting them out because I just need to simplify.
Yeah.
As much as I may. Now, if your food is amazing and our customers like it, I'll like go through everything to try and get to you. But the easier you can make my life, the more I'm like happy to do more.
I mean, we're currently like, honestly, I'm at the shop 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And then we are probably doing another 10, 20 hours at home too, you know. And, you know, we've got a young family, a young son and a little dog. And, you know, time is of the essence for us. I don't want to be, you know, I want to be focusing on the things that make the business successful and not spending 10 hours trying to figure out how to write someone a check, basically. Yeah.
And
So
I wanted to,
oh, go ahead, Cian.
I wanted to add, I did see a comment, somebody had mentioned, you know, what are we paying for these animals? Are we giving a good value to the producers? There was recently a lot of occasions where we're trying to find the best products for our clients, for somebody like Kevin and Polly. Well, there was an example where a farmer had some of the best Wagyu on the planet here in Washington, and he's been sending his older animals to just basically to grind up for hamburger meat, and he was devaluing the product. And in our world, you know, we're basically trying to figure out, you know, what else is out there that is something unique, that is flavorful, that is amazing. And we actually ended up paying the producers about $1,000 more per animal than he was getting just by grounding up his Wagyu beef. So there is value to what we're doing, and we're trying to figure out how to help these farmers.
Yeah.
And it's not always, well, some people look to us to say, hey, well, we have to buy it for this, but we're trying to find creative ways to actually make this work for everyone. And it doesn't work for everyone, but with a select few people who are willing to listen and learn, I think we've been doing a really good job by actually paying people more than what they would get. We're also committing to these animals where they know that in 30 days or whatever timeline, they know that these have a home. And so
we've done the same with those sheep from the farm up in the San Juan Islands, which we've gone and visited, and Kevin set up a relationship with, and we only get a couple animals from them a year.
Yeah,
But what they're doing is so special, and to the American market, getting like hogget or mutton or older sheep meat is so unusual.
Yeah.
And some of them have never even experienced that. So, you know, even though we get a couple from them a year and they're mostly doing wool and they have to get rid of a couple old animals a year, but They're doing a very different thing.
Fantastic animal.
They're just like great people and we're so interested in what they're doing. And sometimes it's just the right thing to do. And sometimes it's cool and fun for us. And so we're super happy to give those to our customers only a couple times a year and be like, this is really special.
Yeah.
And you should be excited about how special this is. And you will not be able to get this any other time this year. And you will not be able to get this in any supermarket. And if you love it and want it again, sorry, like see you next spring. But you know, it's those kind of things are really fun and special and a reason our customers like us as well. And sometimes it's just the right thing to do, which is also makes it really cool because like Cian said, like they don't get ground and they don't get wasted and we can pay them more, pay them something.
You know, I'm just looking at the end of one of the messages there about, you know, margins being very tight. Margins are very tight for restaurants and butcher shops. So, you know, margins are tight all around, you know. There's rent increases, you know, we deal with things like new tele cable being put on our roof that we're getting charged nearly $7,000 for. There's nothing to do with us, you know. It's there's constantly things wrong with the walk-in, you know. This is not like us sitting here printing money. We are like in it every day, and we have very tight margins too. And it's, you know, the main reason we do this is because we truly love what we're doing, you know. And it's, yeah, in an ideal world we would have different small farms coming to us every day, but that's an ideal world. This is as good as we can do with what we've got, and I'm very, very proud of what we do and how we do it. We've created something that's like pretty special at the moment, and long may it continue. And a lot of that is to do with Cian and preservation for sure, you know. So yeah.
Well, as we prepare to wrap
Sorry,
up,
Alex.
I was just going
There's
to say,
just a couple of questions in the chat, Alex, I want to get to, but go ahead.
well, no, get to questions and I'll say my bit
Okay.
as we drop the mic.
Just back when we were talking about pricing, a couple of people had some clarifying questions that I just wanted to make sure to get to. Jeff asked, I think it was when Cian you were talking about price per pound for farmers and ranchers, maybe. He's just asking if that was hanging weight. Jeff, if you want to chime in, you can feel free.
Yes, hanging carcass weight.
Okay.
And a lot of the times we'll pay the kill fee, the processing fee, the brand fee, the shipping fee. So it just really depends, but most of the time we actually will pay, due to the Cattlemen's Act, we pay for the carcass once it's been harvested.
Okay. And then Travis, I think when Polly and Kevin were talking about pricing and margins, Travis had asked if the break even that you mentioned, Kevin, was after the loss on the beef. Travis, if you want to clarify your question, you can.
It was after the loss, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Sorry if I'm in a loud restaurant, so if it's too loud, I can.
Oh, right.
The question was, and you were talking about your ground pricing as close to break even or break even. Is that before you mentioned the 30 to 35% loss, or is that after?
So the ground price would be including the 30 to 35% yield loss. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And then there was one question early on for Cian from Jeff. Jeff, are you there still? It was about, I think, freight.
Yes, I'm here. I think the question was just seeing if you have any suggestions regarding freight. If we're not looking to deliver everything ourselves, it's certainly a challenge. So do you have any advice? We're located Front Range of Colorado.
So because we don't really use outside logistics, we've created, in a sense, our own logistics for, again, locality. So, you know, we were able to pick up these hogs from Central Washington because we've actually created a relationship with a commissary kitchen that we do a good amount of business with. We are able to get stuff picked up from this farm because there's a truck that we, you know, facilitated that's nearby. So a lot of it is so unique to what we're doing and the relationships we built the logistics are in a sense like in-house, right? Are we going to the area? Are we nearby? When are you going to harvest this and when can we pick it up? Are you coming this way? And so, for example, what's the date today? Next Wednesday, actually, we're meeting the farmer who's renting a refrigerated truck for our turkeys. And we're going to meet him halfway so he doesn't have to drive, you know, a full 10 hours round trip. So the logistics are, in a sense, a nightmare, but it's just something that we put together and we're constantly evaluating on a daily basis. But they're just kind of logistics that we've created through our partnerships, through our restaurants we work with, our butcher shops, our producers. They all kind of just meld together. If that answers your question at all, Jeff.
It does. The logistics are always tricky and there's no real clean answer. I get that. So yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I think that's,
Just one last comment. Go ahead.
I think
Alex.
that's a good note to wrap up on. I think many of us on this call, many of the producers are probably in the direct to consumer segment because we see that there's so much margin that disappears between us and the end consumer otherwise. But I think these complexities that Cian and others are talking about point to, there's real cost associated with taking on that value chain yourself. And I want to applaud you folks for doing something very difficult here and doing it with integrity and quality. I think you've got a lot to be proud of, and I hope these sorts of ideas spread and that we're able to see them in other markets. And congratulations to everybody involved here. Great job.
And I will echo that too, as I look out the window and have to drive 10 pounds of heart and 80 pounds of beef to Bozeman. So I really wish Cian was here. Don't want to do it.
I went ahead and put our email in the chat. If anybody has any questions that came up, I'm happy to field questions for Kev. I'm very happy to answer any like marketing, branding kinds of questions if you have them. Very open to that. If anything came up that you would just like to clarify, feel free to get a hold of us. And there's Cian as well.
Yeah.
We're happy to answer.
Yeah.
Sorry, we had to scoot over because our shop's
You-
opening, so.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Polly and Kevin and Cian and Megan and Alex. We'll have the recording up if anyone wants to watch this again or share it. We'll have it up on our Lowdown page, and we will be in touch. We have a whole new series coming next year, so hope y'all can make it next year. And thank you so much.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
us.
all.
Feel free to come and visit the shop if you're
Yeah.
obviously if you're in Seattle or Washington, or feel free to come and visit. We'd love to have any of you guys in and guys and
You can go on a ride along with Cian.
Yeah.
I need a co-pilot
Thanks,
next
everyone.
week.
Be there.
Thanks, have a
Thank
great day.
you.
Everyone,
Right.
thank
Care.
you
Thank
very
you,
much.
guys.
Thank you.